I was told once that things aren't always as they seem. And you know what? There's a lot of truth to that. I am going to attempt to finish part 2. And I've decided that part 2 is going to end up in parts 3 and parts 4 and parts 5 and possibly 6 because there's a lot to tell with this economic power structure when it comes to the abuser and their victims, and oftentimes their survivors. So my story is, I'm going to start with image, because remember in the last video, I told you one of the ways they gain economic power over the victims and sometimes the survivors is through the image. And what's so important to the abuser is image. Everything is about what it looks like to the public, to everybody outside the home. My mom used to always have this saying when I was a child growing up, and now I know what it means. She used to always say, there's a different story behind every closed door. We were walking one day and we had this thing of looking at all the houses, and we would make up narratives of what we thought was going on in the house. And that's one of the things that she said to us while we were walking. And I think we were preteens or teens at the time. And she would always take us out for a walk just so we could be out in nature and get some exercise. And we would communicate a lot. We talked about a lot of things. And that was one of the things that she said, and I never forgot it. And so that is so true. Abusers or perpetrators, whatever you want to call them, they are one way inside the house, behind closed doors, than they are in public. In the public eye, these are the most popular people. They are very charismatic. They know how to work a room. Nobody ever believes that they could be someone who could have toxic behaviors. Nobody ever believes it. That's just how they know how to manipulate. They know how to manipulate energy. Something else we'll talk about in another video. They know how to work a room. They know how to work people's energy. They know how to change your energy. They just know how to do it. They have become masters of their craft. And we have to become masters at defense. When it comes to them, we have to become masters at defense. So I'm going to talk about image today. As I said, everything must be about them. The attention, all of the accolades, the ego priming, anything that primes and pumps their ego. That's a big thing. That's a big thing. You have to watch behaviors, learn to watch behaviors of people. Some people, that's just their nature. And then some people, it's a story behind why they are the way they are. And you just never know that until you live with that person. They do a lot of ego priming. Sometimes if nobody gives it to them, they navigate the conversation into where they are being primed. Their ego is being pumped and they feel good about this because they have to have those accolades. It is so important to them to have the accolades. And one of the things that I learned how to do with my ex-husband is to give him a lot of praise. It was a mode of survival for me. I picked that up early, and I had to get to the point where every little thing. And what helped me with this is I had been a former teacher, and I taught private school. I taught K through 11th grade, and I also did pre-K, all private school. And I learned how important praise reinforcements were. And this became very important as a key for survival when I was dealing with an abusive marriage. Having the sense to praise absolutely everything, no matter how minute, it's very annoying, but it becomes a lifestyle if you want to survive, so that you have enough time to plan to get out. I'm going to continue saying that. It's not something that you use as a sense of peace of staying there. It's a way of manipulating time so that you can plan your way of escape, because that's what's most important, your safety and well-being. They only deal with your goals, the victim's goals and aspirations, if they are able to benefit from it. And an example that I can give is me being Elegant Granny. It got to the point of where he used my name a lot. A lot of people started to know who Elegant Granny was, not my stat name, but Elegant Granny. So it got to the point where I realized what was going on, and I started studying the behaviors behind that. And I said, you know what? This isn't happening. This is just not happening. This was the start of me breaking down some things that I saw that I knew that I could capture in my memory and in my sense of planning of my well-being, so that I can get out. And so what I started doing was I started protecting Elegant Granny. A lot of victims are great at protecting others, but they're not great at protecting themselves. And the one way to protect myself was to protect Elegant Granny. It was a business I had started before we got together. I had been Elegant Granny, the poetress and public speaker. And I started that in 2011. I actually started Elegant Granny as a blog. 2012 is when I started public speaking and traveling with an entertainment company called Kenius Entertainment in Central Virginia as a poet. And it wasn't until 2013, as a matter of fact, actually, you know what? I think this week or next week is my anniversary. When I actually formed Elegant Granny as a business. That was in 2013. I met with a lawyer that I had met in a summit, and we talked, and she walked me through some of the steps to do some things to formulate Elegant Granny into a business. And that's what happened that year. January 2013, I made those moves and I did that. The end of 2014 is when I met my ex-husband, and that's how he got to know Elegant Granny. But he didn't know Elegant Granny really until after we had been married, because I never really talked about it a whole lot. I was very protective of Elegant Granny as if she was my child. And for me, she was. It was something and somebody sacred to me. So anyway, I took a moment to assess, what had happened and how I lost control of a lot of things. And I was trying to pinpoint where and when, and that was a lost thing. Because I was spending way too much time on that. And I was like, you know what? That's wasted energy. That's wasted time. So I started doing things I knew that I could safely do. So I started protecting Elegant Granny. And what I did was I put more of the attention on him and his business and pushed Elegant Granny to the back burner. That was a mode of protection for me. because remember, image is very important to the abuser. So what I did was I kept pumping him and priming him, and I started doing a lot of marketing for him because there were some things about his business that he hadn't done and he never thought about doing them. I did. Also, before we got together, I had previously ended a position that I was in as a marketing director of a nonprofit that no longer exists in town right now. But I was a marketing director over this nonprofit. And so I knew what to do to help gain him traction for what he needed to do for his business. And so what I needed to happen was him to continue with the accolades and receiving them and receiving the attention that he needed from his followers that were following him on YouTube and on Facebook, because those were the main two places that he was in at the time. So that, because in my head, if he was getting more attention from them, he would want to be around them more and be around me less. Well, that worked. That's not to say that it will work in your case, but that's what I noticed that worked in my case, and I went with that. So then I said, okay, how can I get him to grow more in the eyes of people? He had never been on Instagram, and he wasn't all that interested in it. And I told him, I said, let me do it. So he said, if you can make it work, do it. So I did. And his numbers started growing quick. Once in a blue moon, I would post something on Elegant Granny, but it had more to do with my goal of getting this done for him. Okay, Granny, why are you going to do this for somebody who is pounding on you and mistreating you and calling you all kind of names? Because it was part of the plan. Like I said before in part 1, the victim's goal is to have peace at all cost. This buys them time. When you have a space of peace, because what the abuser does not want is for you to have peace. So it is very important if you can find a loophole somewhere where you can steal away for some peace, that's what will happen. So that's what I did. So I helped him gain traction. And next thing you know, his book sales started going up. I started doing a lot more marketing. I started doing less marketing for Elegant Granny, and I did more marketing for him and his business. He lectured out of town a lot. I traveled with him less. The only time I would go is if he would ask me to go, because most of the time I didn't want to go. I was looking forward to that time of being home alone and actually getting some sleep, because when he was at home, I was not getting any sleep. So that I said all of that to say, image is very important to them, and whatever you can do safely to help them with that, and you see how it changes and buffers some of the cushion of you being manipulated and controlled and devalued and beaten or spoken to in a nasty tone. Whatever works, fine, especially if it's going to keep you and whoever, the children or your elders, safe. Do that, because it's always important to keep you safe first. These are some things that I did, because image is very, very important to them. And people must know that they are the go-to person at all times too. That's another thing. People must know in the relationship that they are the ones to go to. It doesn't matter how minute it is, what it is. If it's for, if there's going to be an event, if you have a child and somebody wants to do something for your child, you have to go to them and not to the victim. Nobody can. It doesn't work that way. So it's best to say, why don't you ask such and such and such, see what he says. He always comes up with the best ideas. I used to say that. even though I knew what to do, even though I knew what to say, and we didn't have a child together. He had a child from his first marriage, but people would still come and ask me if there was anything that was needed, or if there was a donation needed to be given. And I'll say, if you want to donate something, here's the link. But if there was something that they wanted to specifically do, I would say, why don't you talk to him? He's a man, and he can pretty much do boy things better than I can. And so people would always, go to him about it, and it made him feel good. And I'm glad it made him feel good, because it gave me a sense of peace. It really did. It gave me a sense of peace because it kept his momentum of that energy of power and control someplace else. That was my goal, and that happened. Another thing is their story, when it comes to image, now becomes your story. Their story now becomes your story. It's always the victim's fault the way they are. That's just how it is in their head. Whatever they say, whatever they do, it doesn't matter. Even if they're the ones screwing up everything, it's always the victim's fault. Your story becomes their story. So now it's not they are the ones sick, or they are the ones in trouble mentally, or they are the screw-ups. It's you, the victim, the survivor. Those fingers are always going to be pointed at you, or the survivor. Is never going to be pointed at them, because image means so much to them. So they're always going to deflect the negative parts of them to that victim. It is so very important. I experienced that a lot. Everything that he was negatively, he said that was me. I had to hear that a lot. A lot. And I knew those things weren't me. And I would just sit there and listen, because what could I do about it? Their way of thinking is their way of thinking. You can't control it. Trying to get into an argument with them and letting them know just because you can, only thing that does is put you into further danger. The best thing you can do is just be silent. That's the biggest key, is be silent when you are alone with that person and they are displaying these mental meltdowns. That's the best thing I can tell you to do. Another safe thing I will tell you to do is, if they are having a mental meltdown and they are someone who physically puts their hands on you in a harmful way, do your best to navigate the whole situation away from the kitchen and away from the bathroom. The reason why I say this is because those are the two most dangerous places for a victim to be in, because there are more things for the abuser to use to harm the victim or to potentially kill them. And so that's the reason why I always say that, those two things. Try not to be in those places at all. Sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes things start off, they pop off in the kitchen, they pop up in the bathroom. Sometimes you can be in the bathroom by yourself, and all of a sudden they just come on in. If at all possible, if you can get yourself out peacefully, get out, because like I said, those are the two most dangerous places. That's pretty much all I want to talk about today. Yeah, because there's some more to this that I'm going to talk about when it comes to control.